Hello, I wish I was a little bit taller. I wish I was a baller. I wish I had a girl who looked good. I would call her.
Hello and welcome to a very special edition of the SC Ballers podcast. I am your host and coach of the Terrace crew, Matt Ricks. It's time to talk SuperCoach Finals. No, not the head-to-head variety. SuperCoach have, of course, launched the finals game in 2025, and we are here to break it down to give you the edge coming into the first week of the finals. For those of you on YouTube, you'll notice a very different setup here today. We are in studio, live, all together. And so without further ado, let's meet our guests. Coming in first, we are going to go in rank order. It's Coach of the Haas-Beans, coming off a PB in Classic this year. It's a big welcome to Jono. How are you, mate?
Mate, good. How good's this setup? A little bit more professional than usual. We're in the middle of the Baller Bash, number one for 2025. And yeah, really looking forward to getting into a bit of our SuperCoach Finals action.
Absolutely. It's very, very good point. Middle of Ball Bash. We are here. It is middle of round 26 when we are recording. So we're going to try and give you the best context we can with that in mind. And we're coming off a big marquee mark, 150 against the Storm last night. What a treat that was, Jono, to be at that game.
As a marquee mark layer, no, not a treat at all. Every try got me more and more slumped into my seat and down, which made you happier. You got bigger and bigger.
Yeah, I loved it. You're looking back at you in tubes with those looks, yeah. Next up, it's 86th place finisher from 2024, coach of Cmac's 86ers. Cmac, how are you, mate?
Really good, Matt. Thanks for having me. How good's this? Very, very different, but I'm really enjoying it. Feel very professional. So, yeah, loving it. It's been, like you boys touched on, it's been a really good weekend so far. Footy last night was unreal. Really looking forward to this chat about finals SuperCoach.
Yeah, a bit of a different game, isn't it? It's a different setup for the SuperCoaches out there.
I must admit, it took me a while to get my head around it. I had to sort of brush up on the rules last week, but I'm ready to go, so I'm really looking forward to the chat about it now.
I was brushing up on the rules just before we started today.
I might have lied and said something a little bit the same earlier.
Yeah. Finally, not least of all, the man, the myth, the legend, the coach who put all his eggs in the Run Home Challenge basket. He's getting them back out to put them all in for the finals challenge. It's coach of Tubes' Pods and one half of the Sunday Snap. Tubes, how are you, mate?
Yeah, pretty good. I'm very happy to be sitting here talking about NRL SuperCoach Finals because it's like another dip in for the year. I don't like that you keep doing this in rank order, and I plan on for the SuperCoach Finals. If we do something else in rank order, I'm going to be number one for the ballers, and so I've been putting in a lot more research than you have.
Right, and so you're not going to make picks for content. This is actually you're serious about this.
No more picks for content. I might have a content team, but this will be Tubes' number one team.
Yeah, okay. It's I think this will suit you. The short sharpness of it, just big vibe picks, big research. I think this is going to suit you down to a T.
The challenge is Jono and I are going to be in the US for 2 of the weeks, so we're going to be going off a little bit of time zone differences and having to manage that, but I think we're up for the challenge.
Good. Now, I mentioned we're recording midway through round 26, so we are, with the top 8 is just about locked in for us. We saw the Roosters beat the Storm. That virtually guarantees them, as long as they don't stuff up against the Rabbitohs in 27, they'll be the 8th place team. We're looking very likely to have Storm versus Bulldogs in week 1 of the finals. The Raiders will play the Sharks or the Bronx. We'll know more about that. Potentially the Warriors still too. Yeah, we're primed for a big final series. We know that the game itself, 8 players per team, new teams every week, and SuperCoaches can no salary cap, so you can pick whatever players you want. So we'll be viewing it through that lens. We've got plenty of strategy to talk through. Some very interesting concepts the boys are coming up with. We are also launching the Baller 3K Prize League, the biggest prize in NRL SuperCoach Finals, bigger than the game itself. You must be signed up at baller.live. Great chance to get involved. There's baller merch to be won and $3,000 to the winning coach. Absolutely fantastic promotion for baller there, so make sure you jump into that. We'll get the league code as well. There'll be no league code. It'll be signed up directly through baller. All right, let's get into strategy chat. So we know that 8 players per team, as I mentioned, 1 for each position and plus a flex. So some very interesting things we can do with the flex. And the big thing is the captaincy. So unlike conventional classic SuperCoach, there will not be double points for your captain. It will be triple points. Double points for your vice captain, so no looping either. Very, very interesting. Jono, what are your early thoughts around captaincy and how you're going to approach it?
C-Mac and I had a good chat about this morning on the way to the Nike factory. We were talking about how do you play it? Do you go with a Payne Haas in your team? I think a lot of people are going to own him at front row. We're getting into positional stuff later. But I think he's going to be probably the most owned player in this game, I would suspect. Do you just lock him as your VC and go, okay, there is 180 points in the bank, ready to go, and then take a punt with that triple score, and that's where you really go pod just to secure a nice, strong score?
Yep.
And we were talking about that as a bit of a tactic. But what do you think, C-Mac? Is that on for
Yeah,
you?
I really like that. I think there's a real space there for the triple score to go a little rogue, go a bit potty, which I know Tubes will really enjoy. And I actually think he is the biggest threat in the finals format. Just the way Tubes plays the game. Goes a bit potty. Yeah, he'll be looking big time at ownership. But yeah, I don't mind the safe vice captain and the big high side in the 3 times for the captain.
I think that's a relatively conservative strategy, if I'm honest. I think to win this challenge, to win the Baller 3K League particularly, you are going to need ceiling guys, Tubes, and I know you'll be looking at ceilings, probably at halfbacks and fullbacks.
No, I disagree. I'm flipping the script here. So I think it's finals. We have not really done SuperCoach in finals. So what we see at this time of the year, the game opens up, fullbacks, halfbacks, those real big upside guys there, you're basically going to have 1 or 2 that are scoring 120 plus every week. Finals is going to be a lot tighter.
Right.
I'm going to be locking in Payne Haas as my captaincy for as long as he's in the finals. You bank that triple score. You know he's going to get the biggest, most amount of minutes that he's going to get because it's the finals. You might be locking in a triple score of a 90 minimum. And then for the VC, which is the double, that's where I might look for a little bit more upside. But even then, I'll still be thinking about the Nathan Clearys of the upside rather than taking a punt on the Reece Walshes and that of the world, because finals are just a bit more tighter.
High floor ceiling guys.
Yeah.
Cleary's your Hind. Nico's probably
Nico's pretty good, yeah. So obviously the goal kicking options, they're still definitely there. But I just think the Teddys, the Walshes, the Dylan Edwards, they become a little bit less appealing because there's not going to be blowouts like they're finals matches. And I know matchups will be important, but they'll still be they're refereed differently as well.
What about ownership? What about ownership when it comes to captaincy? We'll talk about ownership more broadly for the game itself, but will that impact your captaincy decision, Jono?
As in ownership of how many people are putting the C or VC
Correct,
on, or the
yeah.
ownership of the player in general?
No, ownership of the captaincy percentage.
I'll be less worried about it for captaincy and vice captaincy. I'll be very worried about it when we get into a bit of strat chat in picking my team. Ownership is going to have a huge sway on. I'll be picking. There's 2 players I think are similar. I'm taking the lower owned guy every single time, no question.
I think that's the right approach. Let's get straight into ownership for strategy then, because like I mentioned, like whether it's for captains or whatnot, going against the crowd, I think is going to be vital. I don't think you're going to be able to take all the ownership, all the guys who are close to 80-90% owned. I think you're going to have to differentiate yourself from the crowd. Maybe less so in week 1, and as we move, because we know that week 1 you can only have 2 players per team, and that goes to 3 for weeks 2 and 3, and 4 for the grand final week. But I'm definitely going to be, to win it, I think you're going to have to go against the grain. So that's going to be taking on some popular players like your Clearys or your Hinds, potentially at halfback. You mentioned, Jono, that you're going to be looking at some of those options who maybe are lower owned. What about you, Chris?
No, I think Jono's 100% right. I think the ownership's going to be so important strategy-wise, and 2 players who are closely aligned to you, but definitely going for the player who's less owned. I think it's a great share.
What about though, Tubes, the guys who are those high floor guys? So Haas is the obvious one. If they're highly owned, he's probably one that maybe you'd flip that script and you don't want to take on that ownership.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a couple of strategies. I like what they're saying, but there's also the option where for those early ones, when you can only pick 2 from each team, you stick to there'll be a template team. It'll be Haas, it'll be Cleary, and there'll be those template players, and you only potentially look for a little bit of pod in, say, the hooking territory or the center wing territory. But other than that, you're in those early rounds, you get in the template, because what we're going to see when you get to prelims and when you get to grand finals, that's where it'll be a big pod game for me. What I also wanted to ask is...
Who are you?
The snappers.
what I was also going to say, Matt, is the player statistics tables on Baller, is that going to all be updated for the finals?
No.
So we're going to need to really try to work out what the 10%, 5%, and be out how are we going to make these calls, because it's just going to be tough.
No, we won't. So the stat tables won't update for finals, but we will have live match scores and live stats.
Yeah.
So we'll still be able to use the player stats from the season, but in terms of ownership and whatnot, we won't have that. So we'll be referring to SuperCoach for that. I actually can't see ownership stats on SuperCoach yet.
No,
so I
not
wonder,
at the moment.
That would
I wonder
be
if
very
they won't
interesting.
have it. Yeah,
Oh, that could be
because then this whole
spanner in the
conversation, you're
works.
just guessing who's highly owned and who's not.
Good point.
That's right.
Can I push back, Matty, on
Yep.
Tubes' thing? Like, I can't believe what Tubes is talking about. Like, he's talking about safe captains, template teams. Who are you? Like, what's going on? This is the new, and maybe I don't think it's new and improved. I think it's new and worsened, Tubes. But I think with that whole chatter about keep a template the first 2 weeks, go for it the last two, I think you're dead and buried by then. I think you've got to make your big moves in the first 2 weeks. There's not going to be as many pods in week 3 and week 4 of the finals because there's less teams playing. So I don't know where those pods are going to come in. I think it's week 1 is going to be the one that wins it and loses it for people. So that's when I'm going to be looking to go most pod.
Potentially. I think, though, that Tubes is right to an extent around some of these positions. So, like, guys can't, taking on Cleary or Hines at halfback is going to be tricky. Taking on Haas at front row. I think there are a couple of positions that are really going to make or break, and one of those is 5'8". It's so open at 5'8". There's basically throw a blanket. We'll see some stats in a little bit, but throw a blanket over the whole field. I think 5'8" and centre wing are the positions that potentially that's where you can definitely pot up.
Yeah. That's, I think, sort of where I was going. I was probably thinking fullback, flex, halfback, front row forward. I think there'll be a clear top 5 or at least top 6 out of those 5 positions that you want to have. And then the other positions is where you make or break.
C-Mac, how are you going to approach the flex? It's probably, you could take the meat and potatoes, like maybe go for another front row like Joe Taps, or you could go for like a fullback. So if you want to take a Walsh and an Edwards or something like that.
Yeah, look, it feels, and it has, like, in classic all year, it feels halfback or fullback again, even in the big games. I understand what Tube said before, how they're probably tighter affairs and, the big blowout scores, but I still want a high upside player like a halfback or a fullback, a Cleary or a Teddy in my flex. That's the way I'll be playing it.
Yeah, I will almost certainly go for a Hines or Cleary at flex, I would have thought. But just potentially on the matchups for week 1 for fullback. Goal kicking fullbacks are obviously great with that high floor, so something to consider there.
I mean, it's all well and good, but you're not like the Bulldogs fullback is Tracy, the Raiders fullback is KO Weeks. Like, we're really talking about only there's a couple of those sort of actual premium SuperCoach players at the fullback position. So I think you're going to have to go wider.
Matt, you're our friends of the show, the weekly Rubdown boys.
Yes.
They do a lot of data around where tries are scored. I think that is integral. I'm going to be putting so much more research into which teams leak points and tries into which parts of the field, because for a 1 week hit out, I'm not worrying about the players' long-term options. I'm worried about them for that week. I'm going to do a lot more deep diving into those stats, particularly around things like a second row forward, which is so open. I'm definitely going to be researching which teams leak in certain areas and picking my players accordingly to that.
I think that's massive for centre wing, particularly.
Yep.
Guys like Marky Mark, we saw him tear that Storm left edge. Obviously, it'll be a different looking Storm left edge when they play the
Kane
Dolphins
Anderson won't be on the team.
Kane Bradley.
Kane Bradley.
Shout out to
Sorry.
Kane Anderson. G'day, Kendo. big
Kane.
SuperCoach community leader. Yeah, absolutely. Dr.
Actually,
Kane.
I feel like I'm plugging this, but it wasn't a plan. But that's where these projections will be so much more relevant, because it's very week to week specific team.
Very good.
And it's not just about like the longer term strategy of points and like it is the normal season. It's just that week. So knowing, what goes into the projections and understanding the fact that how many points that particular team is in for, how likely it is that that person's going to score a try or not in that particular week, and that all going into the projections will be a huge help.
It's massive. So I should have mentioned that before, too. Ball projections will be on site in the match centre for the finals game. So yeah, we'll do some content around rankings for the week as well, based off projections. So yeah, very exciting. This is actually, that's going to be the real edge, like you said. You got to avoid those guys with the really low projections. Week 1's going to be really hard for someone like Connor Tracy against the Storm. Like, it's going to be very hard to take him. We should note as well the positions have updated. So So guys like Tracy have lost centre wing. So, and a guy like Tommy Turbo, who Manly are looking like not making the finals now, but he's available at centre wing. That'd be a real
shame.
spanner.
What a shame Manly aren't making the 8 for that reason and that reason alone. That would have been so nice.
When they win by 50 the next 2 weeks and Turbo goes 200, then they could
Well,
be
we
in.
can only hope.
Let's get into the positional analysis now, guys. Starting always at the top at hooker. And there really aren't that many options that we're looking at here. Tubes, Harry Grant is a standout, though, you'd have to think.
Yeah, and it's finals time. This is where Harry steps up. There's certainly no minutes risk. If there was during the season, he'll be coming off a 3-week holiday or a rest after that suspension. That's where I think you're really looking for him to step up. The only thing I probably would say is that matchup will be important. Obviously, they're playing the Dogs. The Dogs have been pretty good defensively most of the year. So you could look at an option, but I think that Harry will be that safe lock and load option.
80 minutes, do you think?
Yeah, I think
Surely.
I know Wishart will be on the bench, but I don't think that they're taking off Harry for any impact.
Cmac, are you thinking away from Harry at all, or who?
Yeah, look, at the moment, it's probably very dependent on what the week 1 matchups are. But in my head, I've got Blake Brayley's performance against the Roosters back in, I think it was around round 20. He was unreal against the Roosters. And if that matchup is in the first week of the finals, I don't think I'll be able to avoid Blake Brayley because he was electric that night.
The role Brayley's playing at the Sharks now, he's kind of hasn't had the big tons that he had from a few weeks ago, but he's still been scoring really well back in the season. The role's fantastic.
The role's great. You know he's going to be locked in for 80 minutes. And if the Sharks get on a roll, the big boys get a roll, he'll be very, very, very good to own.
Jono, any alternatives away from the top 2 guys there? They're probably the clear standouts.
No, I don't want to waste our good listeners' time. I know producer Gramsci's asked me to talk about Wade Egan, but Wade Egan is relevant to me for one reason and one reason only. Tubes owes me a steak at a fine Las Vegas restaurant, thanks to Wade Egan never getting to 640K. But I do not, very looking forward to that, but do not think at all that he's relevant for this game. I think it's one of those 2.
But that means it's one of those 2, and say the Sharks are in the bottom, and they get knocked out week 1, it's pretty much Harry after that. And then if the Storm, something happened to the Storm, there isn't really much other option. So that's why I think you lock in Harry week 1, you use him again if he's available in week 2. In fact, if they win the first weekend, he's not available. That hooker is a real...
Well, it's going to be great in grand final week when it's Tom Starling versus Mitch Kenny.
Yeah,
Who do you take? Who do you take?
And that's where I do think different pods will come into it at that point.
Yeah. Front row forward, we've spoken already a lot about Payne Haas. Jono, it's hard to see a world where you don't own him.
Yeah, lock and load. I think we'll talk about a couple of other alternates, but for me, I'm only going to really be looking at Payne. I think he's the one who's got the best upside. His base is unbelievable. I like what Tube said. Tube almost talked me around with that triple points on the captaincy thing at the start.
You're a traditionally conservative SuperCoach player. Didn't need much encouragement. You captain Payne Haas in a bad week, Jono. You're gonna love the triple Payne Haas points. Meat and potatoes, just inject it.
Yeah, so maybe. And look, I just think he's the clear cut one. But I know we'll talk about some other options.
Tubes, there's another big obvious option.
Yeah, I think it's Joey Tarpany, and I think we've talked about it. The interesting part will be the flex. Haas could be a flex option, and Joey Taps could be option 2.
So boring.
It does feel boring, but we talk about rookie roulette all year, and the only thing that stops Joey Tarpany being up in the Payne Haas territory is the fact that he seems to play 50 to 55 minutes most weeks. You got to think in these finals games, particularly with a week rest, assuming they win week 1 and prelim, and the fact that they obviously are all must win. Ricky's got to be leaving him out there. He's got to be playing 60 to 65 minutes in these matches. He's looked unbelievable, even with the lower minutes at the back end of this season. The Raiders are coming off 3 buys in the last 8 weeks of the season or something like that. So he's ready and raring to go, has try upside, has offload upside, tackle break upside. All he needs is the minutes, and you think he's getting it in the finals.
Well, just using the player compare tool on baller.live right now, that we see Haas has a PPM of 1.44 so far this season to around 25. Taps is 1.37, so very comparable. And we've obviously, Taps has been a frustrating own for most of the year. So if we do see those minutes, we could see Taps outscore Haas. So it's certainly something interesting.
60
How many
minutes
do you
against,
think?
well, he got 60 against Penrith last week in that big game. I think that's a fairly good indicator that they're going to be around that 60 to 65 mark.
He's got a very set role as well. He comes off at a point and then comes back on and finishes the game. So it's really just how narrow that window is for while he's off the field. So if we can see 65-minute Taps, then a bit of try upside, it'll be very interesting. Anyone else, Chris, at front row forward?
Look, while I probably concede that those 2 are definitely where you want to be, I think another genuine option to maybe go against everyone else could be AFB. I know he's had a pretty underwhelming season so far. I think he's averaged around the 65 mark. Again, like the others, with the minutes, I think they might increase when their season's on the line, and the Sharks will need him to beat his best. He's also got the possibility of attacking points, so I don't mind him as another option to take those 2 on.
Yeah, he's probably the only one. He's got that. We know he can sniff a try, so he's got that upside. Down to 2RF now, and the standout performer of the season, Tubes, has been Eli Katoa. Any reason to suggest why he might not be a man that you'd want in your team for finals?
Yeah, I think it'd be well worth a look at his back end of the season's base plus power stats on Baller, because I feel as though he's been very good, but he still has relied a bit on attacking stats. And I'm not saying that he's not going to get attacking stats in the finals, but it might be a little bit harder to come by. He's one that I think should and will be one of the most highly owned second row forwards, but that might be one that I'd be willing to take on. Yeah,
he's actually rocking a lower. His average has actually gone down a little bit. Just looking at the player stats table on Baller now for base power. So I just have to get me filters.
Do we think Tubes with Hughes potentially coming back in, that gives him more upside as well?
It does, for sure. I mean, Wishy loves selling the candy. But the other thing is that Hughes' kicking game on that right-hand side, we've seen a lot more going to the left with Munster's kicking game the last few weeks. So Hughes back kicking to the right. Eli Katoa, like Jeremiah Nane, Lika Halasima just last night, he's a very good aerial threat.
I suppose the other thing there just to consider with Ellie is just that you can only have 2 Storm. So you probably are looking at a Harry, potentially Hughes, Munster are big options as well. So it's probably just is Ellie the right Storm to own? And that's probably a question we're going to ask of a few of these second rowers. Chris, Isaiah Yeo at Penrith, he's had a down year, I'd say, by his standards. He's only averaging 62 for the season to this point. He has shown glimpses, though, that he's back to a bit of form.
Yeah, he has. I think he came back from injury last week, 60 minutes. But the big worry for me is that injury. You've only got 8 players here, so I think anyone with an injury cloud is probably someone to avoid. So I'll be avoiding Isaiah for that reason only. I like his output. The injury worry just is too much for me.
Jono, the Canberra team, they've had an amazing year. Best team of the season. They're going to take out the minor premiership.
Don't jinx it.
Don't jinx it, no. I'm sure whenever everyone sees this, Canberra, the JJ Gilton shield will be firmly in their grasp. But in a team, they're not a team full of SuperCoach superstars, but the man at second row forward certainly is that, and he's had that year.
Yeah, I think he's going to continue to be a tremendous option in SuperCoach Finals.
What are we talking about?
Hudson Young, sorry.
Of course.
Huddy's going to continue to be a tremendous option in that second row forward spot. I just think he's got that upside potential. We haven't seen as much of his attacking game over the last 5-6 weeks coming back from that injury. I don't know if that's hampered that side of his game, but I think he's got really good floor. His power stats this year have been incredibly impressive. Obviously, young supplements doing their job.
Thing, yeah.
But I really like him. I think he'd be my number 1 pick. Again, I'd love to see those ownership stats around that, but it is tough matchup. That's probably the most locked-in game is Raiders versus Dogs.
No, Storm v Dogs.
Storm v Dogs. Jeez, I'm struggling. I looked at the wrong thing. So who are the Raiders most likely?
Raiders most likely is Cronulla or Brisbane now that Harry's lost. So
well, see, they're particularly the Broncos, even though they're a great attacking team, they can be a little bit leaky.
Correct.
So I don't mind Hudson Young in that matchup as well.
Yep.
But no, I think he's a great option. He's the one I'll most likely land on.
Tubes, the Dogs boys, who I know you've owned in Classic for a lot of the season as well. How would you be? That's an obviously tough matchup v Storm game 1, but those guys we saw what Preston did to the weakened Panthers in round 26 as well. How are you approaching those guys?
Yeah, they're both options. Preston, he's great base. Billy Kicks has had good base for most of the season, but has been a little bit up and down towards the back end. I still think that, but between the two, even though it sounds weird because Preston just scored 136, I think Kickow's the higher upside, so might be slightly lower floor, but not too much lower, and I think a much bigger upside. I've been talking about it all year. I love that sweeping over to the left play. We saw Will Warbrick back last night, and whilst he's pretty decent on that right-hand wing, I really don't mind that left-hand edge of the Dogs, and it's a pretty good matchup for that week 1. Yeah. I think Billy Kicks could easily be one to take on those big ones that you talked about.
And we saw, it's only a couple of weeks ago now that Kicks actually scored 91 against Melbourne in Melbourne. Yeah. In that game in round 25. So
he's a big game player too.
And we can see on the season averages, he's averaged 87 against top 4 teams this year.
Yeah.
So, very, very big game player, and he'll get the 80 minutes locked in.
Is he the captain? Or was he just captaining during the Origin? Oh no, Crichton's the captain, but he was the step-in captain. I really feel like he's And I know it's sort of, you might not have always thought of him as a big game player, but I feel like this year, when they've needed him, he's really stepped into that role, and he'll be going into it in finals time.
Yeah, love Billy Kicks. I'd actually say that Billy Kicks is my pick at the moment. Matt's moral for round one, but we'll see. I am prone to changing my mind. Halfback. So the big position. There's a couple of great options here, Chris, and then we can only start at one spot, and that's Nathan Cleary. He's averaging 80 for the season. Is he likely to be in your team?
I think he's locked and loaded for me. The best player in the game, I think. And I think Penrith are going to probably play most weeks now that they're in the bottom four. So he's one. I know the trades aren't overly important because they're unlimited, but he should be there for a good few weeks. Chuck him in there, put the C on him. I'm very happy with Cleary. I think the Panthers are in for a big month coming up.
I'm hoping that the Warriors get the Panthers in first week, because I think the Warriors could knock them off. I don't like that matchup for Penrith over there. So yeah, you could definitely be right. Playing every week, he's the standout option. Tubes, our boy, the prince that was promised. How likely are you to be picking Nico Hines week one?
Geez, it'll depend on the forecast. If it's raining, he's straight in, like the wet hair prince. But I do think, like, Cleary's the obvious option. I think he's matchup proof. Like, I don't think it matters. Like, and it's finals time. They'll be leaning on him even more heavily. But Nico, I think, depending on what their matchup looks like, you could be looking at him either as the half or he could be a flex. He's got a great floor. He just gets so many touches. He's obviously got the goal kicking. If they're playing something like the Roosters in week one, then
I think you want that bottom four if they're a bottom four matchup.
Yeah, it'd be more tough to pick him if they're playing the Raiders. If they can hopefully come into fourth. But yeah, if they're playing the Roosters, I'll be having a serious look at him. His floor is great, but he's just got that consistency, and we know he's got the upside.
I feel like he'll be under-owned. Without seeing the stats week one, I do feel like Nico won't be heavily owned. I feel like he might be a nice pod if they do have a Roosters or a Warriors week one, so we'll keep an eye on that.
Yeah, and if it's wet, a lot of other people go worse in the wet, and
we know that
Nico doesn't.
Jono, any alternatives at halfback? They're the big two, obviously, but is there anyone you got your eye on to potentially either in flex or at halfback take them on?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to own both those guys. I think the flex will get used for both. It'll be a bit of a Porque Nolos dos Old El Paso situation. But I am really on off Sammy Walker. I think Sammy Walker for the Roosters, who exactly they play is still a little bit up in the air. The Roosters matchup's probably one of the ones that's less easy to see as we're recording this right now in the middle of round 26. Yep. But just the way he runs that team, it's Sammy Walker ball. He takes over everything. He's a goal kicker. He loves the big game. I reckon he's going to be a really good pod, and I think he'd be an interesting one to start with, especially depending on matchup.
He's looked sensational since he's come back from that ACL, so yeah, I don't mind that at all. We spoke about the 5'8" position being the big one. We've got so many options here: Munster, Strange, Tulagi, Burton, Galvin. I don't even know where to start. We might start with Munster Tubes. He's been the 5'8" historically over the past 5 or 6 years. That's been the standout. I don't know though. It hasn't been overwhelming though this year.
Yeah, but he's still been fairly consistent. Like, he's averaging 71 for the season. He has the narrative certainly around him that he's a big game player and he gets plenty of touches. It will be interesting when Hughes comes back in and potentially takes some of those touches and what that looks like. I think he's the safe play. I think you can take him on, but I think the Storm are likely to go pretty deep into the finals. They're certainly going to be there for at least 2 of the weeks. Yep. He might be one that you can look to take on in week 1 of the finals and look at a bit more of a pod option or a pod play, depending on matchups. I'm sure we'll talk about a few, but he'll be definitely in my finals team at least 1 week in the finals.
Yep. He's got the clear season average still. We know he's got a ceiling. He's still got that clear season average. Someone who's had a fantastic end of the season, Jono, your fellow Ken Barron, Ethan Strange. I think he's going to be super popular. He's only rocking a season average of 62, but the form he's been in the last 5 or 6 games has been phenomenal.
Yeah, I think he's obviously a great pick. I think if we're talking about pods, I reckon he's going to be the most owned one. I think a lot of people are watching this form he's in, and rightfully, he's going to be an attractive proposition week 1. I'm probably going to look to pod him. I understand why he's a great option. Form's incredible. I think he's getting the most popular own. I'm going to look at, I know Chris is going to take us through a few more pod options, and I've got my eye on a couple of these pods, but I don't think you can go wrong with Ethan Strange. He's such a good player.
I think his floor's a little bit low for me.
Without-
Like he can turn up at without the kicking, he can turn up with the 20. Like and you're just gone with that. He can obviously rock 120 as well, but I just feel like I want a bit more floor from my 5'8". Chris, the pod options that Jono spoke about there, which one of these guys do you have your eye on?
Yeah, look,
5'8"?
there's a couple I don't mind. Look, Matt Burton got the goal kicking back on the weekend, which I think is worth noting. So he's probably a nice pod option. But the one for me, again, depending on matchup, is Blaze Talangi. I think he will be under-owned, and I think he's a really good option, particularly given that I think the Panthers are going to have a real nice draw week one. Whoever they play, they'll be leaking.
Yep.
Like it'll be the Wars, the Sharks, or the Broncos. They're all very capable of leaking points, and I think Blaze will be a really good pod, particularly in week one.
Yep, don't mind that shout at all. Centre wing is going to be probably the make or break position for the SuperCoach Finals. There are so many great options. One guy, Jono, we're seeing coming back from injury in round 26 is KL Iro, and I really need you to say KL Iro's name for me.
KL Iro. I think he is awesome. As Sharks fans, I can't believe you let me be the one to talk about KL Iro, because he's an absolute weapon.
Objectivity.
True. Well, you're not going to get much because I'm a massive fan. Like his base plus power is immense. He showed us this year that with early ball he can be an X-factor player. I actually really worry for a pod option like Ronnie Mortallo outside KL Iro, because I think the ball stops with him because he usually scores so often. So I think
it's 11 tries in 11 matches this year or something. Yeah. He scored in every game. And we always used to. It was in his rookie year last year. We always used to. We were bereft that he could never get a try or any attacking stats. Now he can't stop this year. So it'll be interesting to see the form he comes back in.
I think if he comes in good form, I think he's going to be very high ownership coming into this finals game. But I think it's going to be for a good reason.
Agree. Chris, back down to the nation's capital, and the guy who has had he's going to finish the year with a massive pricing classic, but he's only rocking a 64 average, and that's Matty Timoko. How interested would someone like him be?
No, I like Matty Timoko. I think he's a bustler. Like he'll tackle breaks. Could potentially have a high upside. I think if the Raiders get on a run, he in game, he can really go on a tear there for a 20-minute period, and he goes berserk. I don't mind him. I probably won't start with him because I wouldn't mind a look. We'll see.
Yeah,
I'm a bit.
We couldn't let you talk about you. Well, that's why we couldn't let you talk about your own Timoko, because you'd go on for it. The pod would never end.
No, but the thing with I think the thing with Timoko, just to add in, is his back end of the season has been phenomenal.
Yeah.
We knew he had this in him. I certainly knew he had it in him for the last couple of years. I've been calling it, and it's nice to see him really take off. He's going to end the season almost as the top value centre wing because of how well he's been going. And I really do think he can take that into the finals. It feels like they've unlocked him a little bit with a bit more early ball from Fogarty. I think he could. I really like him.
Just to illustrate that, he's rocking as of end of round 25. He's rocking a 5-round average of 88. So that's the key. That's the key number there for Matty Timoko. Tubes, we were at the game. So as I said, recording in round 26. We're at the game to watch Marky Mark's 4-try effort. It's just when he's on and the Roosters are going that way, it's just something to behold. But Sammy Walker back in the team, we've seen that be much more left-sided dominant.
Yeah, there's no shock that first week Sammy Walker's out of the team. He goes 150 again. And they were really going right. And, he was coming up against Kane Bradley. And so they figured that out halfway through the game. Actually, let's just go right and get the ball to Marky Mark. But if Sam Walker was in the team, they may have figured that out, but he may have still gone left because that's what we've been seeing. I couldn't have him. I think that Roosters are getting bundled first week anyway, so it's only relevant in week one.
Cheers with the hot take.
Sammy Walker will be playing, so I don't think it's relevant.
The pod options here. I think this is really the position to pod up in. And one guy I'm massively interested in. He didn't play against the Chooks. Xavier Coates. We've seen the ceiling this year. We've seen the tries. They've got that basic set play that no one can defend. Munster kick into Coates. So that could also be a stack play from a strategic perspective to go the Munster Coates double up.
Yeah.
I think with the ceiling that X Coates is just someone that you can definitely. He won't be highly owned, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, you've loved him all year. You talk about X Coates more than anyone I know. I think
I've never owned him. Never owned him.
You mentioned about the low floor thing, and I think he's one of those guys who does have a bit of a low floor. There's the risk that if he doesn't score a try on a given week, he could go 20 to 25.
Yep.
So there is that risk involved, but the upside is certainly there. We can see him score tries in bunches.
Yep. Stephen Crichton has lost the kicking. That probably rules him out as an option. I know you've owned him in Classic.
Yeah, exactly. No, I agree.
And then someone like Roger Tubes, he just doesn't really get it done for me from an excitement perspective. And
they're going week 1 too. The one I wanted to chuck in there, he's
got
not on the run sheet, so I'm sorry I'm going rogue, but Spicy Tamale. He's back this week. That Raiders, it'll be interesting if he's on the left edge or the right edge. He was very good to start the season. He does have good base plus power, but I also know that he's got that upside in him to score some tries on the Raiders wing.
We can't do this live podcast without mentioning our man Young GI Tubes and like. I know you said you're not making picks for content this year, but if there is going to be one for pick for content, it's going to be Young GI, surely.
It might not be a pick for content though. Like he's playing well. The Broncos are playing very well, and he's just got a great base. And yeah, it's hard though because I'm judging it based on since it's become Reece Walsh's team. If it stays Reece Walsh's team, like Young GI, both Young GI and Stags come really into the conversation.
Absolutely. Let's get down to the blue ribbon position of fullback now to round out our positional analysis. And the man, the myth, the legend. I've already used that one today, but we'll use it again. James Tedesco, Christopher, 85 for the season. He's coming off another ton against the Storm this week. Imperious season. Everyone thought he was gone a couple of years ago, but he just keeps proving everyone wrong, and he'll be a tough watch for non-owners round 1.
Yeah, he was amazing again last night. Punched out another ton. He's just so on the ball, wants to be in the game. I really like Teddy. I know the worry is they're going to finish in the bottom half of the 8, and they're probably going to be the outsider of week 1, whoever they play. But it's James Tedesco. He's matchup proof. I really like him, and whether I go with two halves or two fullbacks, I think I'll have him at fullback either way.
Something for Teddy though that's sticking in my craw a bit from this game's perspective. We've seen him score. He's had 2 games this season where he's scored try and gone sub 40 or 40 around that 40 mark. Does that worry about you? Does that worry you, the low 4?
Yeah, well, that's happened. That's probably happened in the last couple of weeks, hasn't it? Like he scored a try last week in their loss.
And against the Eels.
Yeah.
And against the Eels and the Sharks are the 2 games that have happened. Yeah.
So, look, no, it still doesn't worry me. It's obviously there. Everyone can go low, but I just love Teddy. I feel really safe. I think Jono's referred to him as a warm blanket.
He's a massive captaincy option week 1
big
as well.
time.
So, warm blanket. You can't go too wrong. Tubes, a guy that you've owned in Classic now, and we've seen with this role with Adam Reynolds out, is that going to come down to it for Reece Walsh, whether Reynolds plays or not, whether you're going to own him?
I think it will for the masses. I think he's a real pod option. Like Reece Walsh, he's fully fit. Like we were talking about last night, there's not a man that can move quicker in his first 2 steps than Reece Walsh. We saw him play in that grand final against the Panthers where he basically just put him on the back for the first half and then Adam Reynolds proceeded to throw him off everyone else's back. But I just think that if the Broncos are going to be a chance of getting it done in the final series, it has to be on the back of Reece Walsh.
Agree.
So I really don't mind him as an option. But certainly if Reynolds is still out and he's goal kicking, then he's probably number 1 pick at that point.
I'd go as far to say as he's close to must own if he's in that role for week 1 of the finals, whether they're playing the Raiders in Canberra or whether they've got a home final.
Yeah, it doesn't matter who they're playing. If he's playing that role, he's number 1.
Agree.
It does become a bit more of a question if Reynolds is back.
Agree. Jono, a man who came close to ruining my SuperCoach season. His head has been completely polished and shiny, looking resplendent. He might have a post-season trip to Turkey on his hands, but Dylan Edwards has been in amazing form come the back end of the season, and he's going to be hard to turn down.
Do you mention Turkey as a jab to address the rumours that I've heard? Is that why you brought that up? Look, Dylan Edwards, I also didn't own him for that period, and it was really tough. But then we've seen when Cleary came back that he's not as elite. Without that goal kicking, he gets less touches. I think Yo and Cleary means less touches for Edwards as a combination, and they're both going to be back and fit and firing for the finals. The one thing I will say is I really like these guys in the bottom 4. I think for once in SuperCoach, I'm less interested in the top 4, more interested in the bottom 4 because they're leakier teams. There's going to be more points most likely to be scored in those games. So that's where an Edwards, if he's playing someone who's a bit of a leaky opposition, I actually do become more interested.
We see these finals games in those knockout semis as well where the elimination finals, I should say, where teams, obviously their season are on the line, so they're so desperate, so they can concede a high number of points in those. So if Walsh has a home elimination final, I think he, like you said, he's an option no matter what. Just going through it, like I really don't like Edwards as a pick in this game. Like he doesn't have the goal kicking, he doesn't have the role. I really think you need Cleary out of the team for him to have the role. Yeah. He's got it's a Reece Walsh type situation.
Yeah,
I think Teddy's a clear pick here at fullback for me, no matter who they play or where they're playing. This will be very important for the ball projections though.
Yeah.
Alternates, perhaps without the goal kicking, I can't really get around. He will have a good matchup though week 1. Like they'll be heavy favourites against the Dogs. They get Jerome Hughes back as well at halfback.
Kicked last night though, so
no, Meaney's back though. Meaney will be back.
Yeah, but perhaps last time that happened, perhaps held the kicking. Like he didn't have any shanks from right in front last night, so he could be holding on to it.
Didn't have many though.
Didn't have many kids. Didn't get many kids.
True.
So I couldn't come into Connor Tracy. I just don't think they're going to be the Storm week 1. That's just too hard a matchup. So I'm all in on Teddy. I think Reece Walsh if he has the role. I think that I'll probably look at Walsh no matter what. I think he, like you said, the Broncos are going to need him to get any progress into the finals. So.
It is going to be interesting as those numbers shrink, and as I said, it's Tracy and KO Weeks, and there's going to be some not relevant normally SuperCoach fullbacks who you're going to be looking to pick, and that's where Edwards might come into it. But I think for week 1, he's much lower down the list.
Yeah. All right, boys, that is going to see us out for our finals podcast. It's been amazing to be in the studio with you guys today. We're going to be having content through the finals. Make sure that you're checking out ballr.live for all your projections and live scores throughout the final. It's going to be critical content for you. Get along, sign up to ballr.live. 3K challenge as well. Biggest prize in SuperCoach Finals. Be crazy not join, Joe.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm excited. This is a new SuperCoach game. It's uncharted territory. Like when we're talking about Classic, we know what the things to look for are. This is uncharted territory. I'm really excited to play.
It's going to be great. Chris, thank you so much.
No, thanks for having me. That was really, really fun, boys. Really enjoyed it. Can't wait to get amongst it. Good luck in the 3K challenge.
And Tubes, I'll let you sign us out.
Yeah, baby.
So good.
The point. Sad on.
Down the barrel.
Love the point. Jeez, Tubes knew how to find the camera early.